improve compliance, and also create a fair economic system across West Africa. And the topic for the discussion is harmonizing taxation in West Africa, the role of West African Union of Taxation Institutes, Wauti. And Wauti is leading this effort in, as it were, ensuring that we harmonize our taxation system here in West Africa. And they are doing that by fostering collaboration among tax professionals and also policy makers. And joining us today are two distinguished guests, Mr. George Kwetia, who is the president of Wauti, the West African Union of Taxation Institutes, and the Chartered Institute of Taxation Ghana, CITG, and also Mrs. Ernestina Appiah, chairperson of the local organizing committee of the Wauti 2025 and conference, and also the vice president of the Chartered Institute of Taxation Ghana. Welcome, Mrs. Appiah, Mrs. Ernestina Appiah, and Mr. George Kwetia. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we also want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to share the little we know of our institution. And also thank you for your audience and taking time off to listen to us.
Right.
So thank you.
Great. We are very much honored to have you as well. Very distinguished guests as yourselves. Now, we're going to talk about your organization. We'll also get into your conference, and then we talk generally about taxation harmonization in Africa, in West Africa specifically. And so maybe we can just start from there. Can each of you briefly share why taxation harmonization is so important in West Africa? Maybe I'll start from Mr. President.
I think maybe we need to go back to, maybe I'll use Wauti as an example.
Right.
We all know that some time ago, one of our own, Victor Bo, who was a chairperson for ECOWAS, had this dream of having an umbrella union or institution that will harmonize taxation within the sub-region. Because one of the roles of ECOWAS is to make sure that trade actually grows within the sub-region, and the movement of people, everything progresses within the sub-region. And of course, taxation is one of the areas that can really hinder the objective of ECOWAS in terms of movement of people, in terms of trade, cross-border trading and the stuff. So he had this dream of setting up an institution. So which will basically look at harmonizing taxes. So if you look at the sub-region, we basically have two blocks, the Francophone, which is the French-speaking, and the Anglophone regions. And very clearly, even from the legal point of view, we have one system having an adversarial legal system, whereby we all know that even in Ghana, for instance, where if somebody goes wrong legally, the law requires that the system should prove that the person is guilty.
Right.
Whilst the Francophones assume or presume that you are first guilty and you, the individual, or you, the guilty person, the onus is on you to prove that you are not guilty. So when you're working with different systems like that, it becomes a challenge. Right. And obviously, if we look at the sub-region and we look at the objectives of ECOWAS, for instance, trade, if you want to trade, let me say Ghana wants to trade with Nigeria, if you're moving goods by land, right from Ghana, you walk through a Francophone country, Togo, you may have challenges with the language, you may have challenges with what their legal system is. Then you move to Benin, similar challenges. Before you enter Nigeria, which may be English speaking.
Right.
So certainly there is the need, even for ECOWAS to meet its objective, for us to promote trade among ourselves, there is the need for some level of harmonization. And tax is one of the areas that we need to harmonize. One, because if we are looking at the sub-regional development and growth, it boils down to revenue.
Right.
And therefore, if we're able to harmonize our tax systems, it becomes a lot much easier for us to mobilize resources across countries to be able to achieve that. We're talking about various highways that will run through West African countries. And you obviously need some level of harmonization, because if you give out that contract without harmonization, then you're going to have the contracts broken down into various pieces, as we see currently, just because of the lack of harmonization. And that doesn't augur well for a good growth and development of the sub-region. So I would say the bottom line is that if we are looking at growth and development, revenue is key. Revenue mobilization, obviously, is the bedrock of it, and therefore the need to raise taxes internally to be able to meet that. And to do that within the sub-region and across the sub-region, harmonization is the key word.
Is the key word. Is a way to go.
Thank you.
Right. Let me also bring Mrs. Appiah. Mrs. Appiah, is there anything you want to add to that?
I want to speak on our vision and our mission.
Okay. All right.
Of Wauti.
Right. Let's get into that.
The vision of Wauti is to harmonize taxation practice in West Africa. And our mission is to promote the highest professional standards of competence and integrity among practitioners in member states.
Okay.
So that is basically our mission and our vision.
Your vision.
And it aligns with the harmonization of the tax system.
Right. Now, what countries are currently part of Wauti, and how do they collaborate?
Well, we have, let me put it this way, it will be best appreciated if you understand the basis of qualifying as a member. To qualify as a member of Wauti, you need to have a recognized professional tax institute. Okay. The charters or the regulations of that professional institute forms the foundation for membership. So currently, we have the full membership group, we have temporary membership group, and then we have affiliate group.
Right.
The fourth one is an observer status, right? The full membership group is made up of 4 Francophone countries and 2 Anglophone countries. Ghana, Nigeria, the Anglophone countries. And then you have Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Senegal as the Francophone countries. These are in the full membership group. Then we have the affiliate, let me come to the temporary membership group. The temporary membership group are only 2 countries, and that's Liberia and Liberia and Togo.
Okay.
So why is that difference between a full membership and then a temporary membership? It's just because the registration process, the process of going through for them, these 2 countries to become full members, hasn't been completed, but they do have recognized tax institutes, and we still are working through the registration process. Then we have the affiliates. The affiliates are Gambia, and then you have Benin and Ivory Coast.
Right.
These countries are yet to be fully recognized as members, but then they affiliate members affiliate on the basis that they've submitted their documentation, they participate in everything that we do. And then we have the observer status, which is Mauritania. The observer status is given to countries that do not have independent professional tax institutes. Mauritania's position is that they do have a body for professionals, engineers, doctors. It's a colossal professional group. They do not have an institute or a professional group specifically for tax.
Okay.
So on that basis, they can only sit back and observe or follow the things we do because their institute is not a fully recognized tax body. Okay.
I see. Yeah. Now,
so that is the difference. And that's why we have these categories.
Okay. All right. I mean, thanks for helping us understand that. Now, how does Wauti interact with national taxation institutes like the CITG and tax agencies like GRA?
Okay. As I said, let me take the CITG, Professional Tax Institutes of a certain resident country, which is a member of Wauti.
Yeah.
How they interact is that you need to be a member.
Okay.
Your relationship with Wauti, you pay subscription, you participate in everything that Wauti does, all the activities. The issue is that the institute, Wauti, has member country institutes as members of Wauti, not individuals. The membership of Wauti is made up, as I've explained, is made up of various tax institutes in the member countries.
Right.
So you need to be a professional tax institute, maybe in Ghana, just like CITG, maybe in Nigeria, as it is in CITN.
Okay.
And that to become a member. You don't walk into Wauti as an individual. And become a member. You need to be a professional tax institute. Okay. So the relationship, that is the relationship between, for instance, CITG and Wauti.
Okay, so you don't deal directly with the individuals. You deal with organizations.
Not directly with the individuals. We deal indirectly with individuals because the individuals who are members, for instance, of CITG are the very individuals who Wauti has as members to work for Wauti.
Right.
But the individuals are not directly members of Wauti. So if, for instance, in my case, being the president of Wauti for now, when we are in our next AGM, for instance, we will have another president being nominated.
Okay.
And that president will have to be a president of a recognized tax institute of a member country.
Right.
You get it?
Right.
Okay.
Right. I get it. Now, how does Wauti engage with West Africa? I know you guys are...
Then I guess you asked me...
Yeah, about GRA as well. I don't know if
and the issue with GRA, and I know as Tina is sitting here, Tina is a staff of GRA.
Oh, okay.
But then we have a relationship. But the issue is that the members of GRA staff are members of CITG.
Okay.
As tax professionals.
Right.
Okay. So we do have that relationship because of CITG and GRA working through CITG. But there is, when you flip it the other way around, because Wauti seeks membership from member countries, we do have, Wauti does have also a direct relationship with the GRAs of the various, or let me say the Ministry of Finance of various member countries, where you do not have the equivalent of GRA, for instance. One in relationship with cooperation, support, and all other resources that probably Wauti will need from a particular regional group or country. And that is the way. So, for instance, as we delve into this conversation, you will realize that this year's conference, as it is being organized by Wauti in Ghana, GRA is a key sponsor. For the conference.
Right. So if it was in Nigeria, then the equivalent of that would
be IFRS.
Right. We'll talk a bit about the conference pretty soon. Yeah. But how does, I know you influence taxation policy in some of these countries. How does Wauti engage with West African governments to do that?
Let me walk back a little bit, as we said. Wauti seeks membership from professional institutes in various countries, which ultimately, if they become member countries, that is the goal. So what Wauti does is to pay country visits to non-member countries which are in the sub-region, and then let the government, policy makers, whatever, understand and appreciate the need for that country to set up an independent tax institute. Most countries do not appreciate that, especially for the Francophones. Let me give it an example. It's not to tarnish whatever, but that is their system. The system has been set up such that legally, for you to do tax, for you to become a tax professional, their system requires of you to be an accountant or a lawyer.
Oh, really?
So for you to now go and get them to appreciate that these accountants and lawyers, just like Ghana, you can also have members who are tax professionals who are neither accountants nor lawyers. Because what we see and what you will see at the end of the day is that if you do not have members who are true tax professionals, you will have members who owe allegiance to other professions other than tax, because the lawyer may be doing litigation, blah, 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 blah. His focus may not be on tax. So when a tax issue crops up, he does it at a certain level.
Right.
And the results may not come out probably as unique as if that matter had been handled by a tax professional. Somebody who is fully devoted to looking at tax as a profession. So that what Wauti does is to visit these countries and then encourage leadership to appreciate the need for them to recognize the setting up of independent, so that, because you can only become a member of Wauti when you are a recognized professional institute. So that is the kind of relationship we have with government and the leadership of various countries.
Okay, so essentially, Wauti doesn't necessarily influence tax reforms and tax policies in the various countries. They focus on getting them to set up independent tax bodies.
That is just one wing of it. What you mentioned in terms of influencing policy is also done through various technical sessions, like even this conference and that stuff. After we pick very topical issues, current issues, trends that need to be looked at, at the end of the day, after the conference, we put together a communique, which is the position of Wauti on various matters of policy, and share that communique. And of course, member countries become interested, and that is the way we influence policy. We also do so indirectly because Wauti is a technical advisor also to ECOWAS, and ECOWAS has one of its objects to influence tax, as we said, harmonization of tax and those things, and then we contribute to that. We participate in various ECOWAS tax meetings and blah, 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 symposia and those things, and make various technical positions which are picked up and passed on to various governments, that these are some of the areas that you need to look at to improve your tax system, or this is the sub-region's position on this particular issue of taxation. Even though maybe global may be looking at something, we feel that this is our homegrown tax position on the matter. So that is the way policy is influenced in the various countries. That is. It's not that we just only seek for membership,
but you also,
the more you are able to get membership, the more you are able to influence the policy in various countries. That's the point.
Right. If you just tuned in, this is Business Breakfast on Z. It's exactly a minute to 9, and this morning we're having a conversation on how the West African Union of Taxation Institutes, Wauti, is leading efforts by fostering collaboration among tax professionals and policymakers. We're exploring how taxation harmonization can enhance revenue mobilization, improve compliance, and create a fair economic system across West Africa. And I'm speaking to Mr. George, with Mr. George Kwetia, who's the president of Wauti and the Chartered Institute of Taxation Ghana, CITG, and Mrs. Ernestina Apia, who is the chairperson of the local organizing committee of Wauti 2025 and the vice president of CITG. You can join a conversation. Probably you have a question, you need some clarity. You can text us on WhatsApp on 0544321019, 0544321019, or get interactive with us on our social media platforms on Instagram, Facebook, and X at ZFMGH. Instagram, Facebook, and X at ZFMGH. We're also streaming live on YouTube at Z Multimedia. Please get interactive with us and send in your questions or make your comments, and we'll do well to address them accordingly. Now, let's focus on your role in standardization and policy reform at Wauti. Now, what progress has been made towards harmonizing tax systems across Wauti member countries?
Maybe just before I respond to that, I want to circle back to the GRA relationship with there's this institute called WATAF, which is the West African Tax Administrators Forum, of which GRA is a member. And Wauti works in collaboration with WATAF on technical. So at the end of the day, what is shared also with WATAF tends to impact the relationship. Your question?
My question was that what progress has been made towards harmonizing taxation or tax systems across Wauti member states so far?
Well, I think we've chalked a lot of success, incidentally, in the two blocks separately. The Francophone and the Anglophone, because we've been working together, especially, and it works perfectly when an Englishman is speaking to an Englishman or a Frenchman is speaking to. I think we have some way to go. You're talking of achievement in getting the group as a whole to get things harmonized. So what we have come to realize is, if you want to harmonize a certain system, there should be a certain level of balance, right? If somebody is up there and the other is down there, it's very difficult to bridge the gap. And that is the challenge we have between the two blocks. So what Wauti is currently doing is to help develop and build the capacity of most of the Francophone member countries. And just because, incidentally, I don't want to say that probably their hands are tied because of their relationship with France.
Right.
Because if you want to make certain changes, France is a very significant influence.
That's
and
true.
we are West Africans, and we're seeking to do something. And incidentally, they will have to bounce it to an external party, and because of so what we are seeking to do, or what we are currently doing, is to upskill their competencies, so that they themselves will have the conviction to speak back,
right,
or quote unquote against their own system, the need for a certain change. And once they are able to achieve that, then we'll be at par to be. So currently, to say it blunt, is the fact that it's still work in progress. But in terms of the francophone, in terms of francophone to francophone, in terms of anglophone to anglophone, there's been a lot of achievement in that. But the challenge, let me call it that way, is to now fuse the two in terms of harmonization.
Right. So if I get you very well, it means that it's quite easier to do that in the Anglophone countries compared to the Francophones. Is that what it means?
Kind of. To be honest. Kind of. Just because currently Anglophone countries owe no allegiance to any so-called colonial master or whatever. We've also seen trends where some Francophone countries are now getting fed up, and they've realized how they have been held back for so many years. And now, we will see the change ultimately. We will get there. Because we've seen signs of improvement in that direction, that certain countries want to be independent and truly independent.
So essentially, one of the obstacles is the influence of external forces.
Exactly,
right. Okay, now can a unified tax system improve trade and investment across West Africa?
Okay. I think I alluded to this point when I was making the introduction.
I want you to elaborate on that a bit more.
Obviously, the straightforward answer is yes. But what is key is not merely the laws, but also technology. To improve trade, and also the political will. Because at the end of the day, ECOWAS has passed various protocols, but some member countries don't see the need even to sign up to. Last month or so, 3 countries decided that they are not members of ECOWAS again. And so, you get what I'm saying? So, to move forward, I would say yes, but we also need to look at technology and to also harmonize that across this sub-region.
When you say technology, what do you mean?
What I'm talking about, we have public digital infrastructure. Okay. When I talk about public digital infrastructure, I'm talking about it's made up of 3 key things. You have the merchant digital system, and then we also have, let me put it simple for people to appreciate. For instance, Ghana digitized registration as tax identification. So you also need an identification system, a digital identification system.
Right.
If we are able to get possibly everybody in your country registered, and you're able to migrate them into a tax system, you basically whether they like it or not, indirectly, you have had all of them register as tax persons. Okay.
Right.
And therefore, if you also have a very good merchant system, as we see in Ghana, where even truck pushers receive payments through Momo and those things.
Right.
It's a way of capturing them into the system.
Okay.
So if you have a system where data flow in various public digital infrastructure systems flowing seamlessly with the digital registration system and with a digital payment system, you will be able to capture literally everybody in the tax net. And if you mine that information very well, you obviously will be able to improve your revenue mobilization. So to speak. So
Okay. So you believe that we should be able to do that across the African region, and that will make it easier for.
correct.
Right.
And I talked about the seamless flow of data. You don't need to build a system in Ghana, a public identification system, which will not speak to the system probably in Ivory Coast.
Right.
Okay, we should be able to have a system which will speak across countries to be able to harness the advantage that we're looking for. Because if you, as you said, if we're looking to improve trade, then if I'm a taxpayer in Ghana and I have a subsidiary in Ivory Coast, that information should flow seamlessly on both sides.
Yeah.
For the Ivorian tax authorities to know that headquarters is in Ghana, and for Ghana also to know that subsidiary is you don't need to interview me for me to decide whether that subsidiary I would decide to talk about it because it is a separate legal entity or not. Until I tell you that, well, I need clearance from the shareholders or the directors in Ivory Coast before I can talk about it and all those blah, blah, blah. But if we do have that public infrastructure, digital system, which speaks to each other across board, that would be fantastic to improve trade.
Right. Right. Now, I also believe that Wauti, but thank you. I thanks for that explanation. Now, I believe that Wauti enforces some ethical standards and ensures some compliance among tax professionals, isn't it? How do you do that?
Well, it's done this way. Wauti, as a regional institute, as I said, we organize training, we capacity building, and all those stuff that seeks to improve that. Wauti also requires member countries to do some kind of self-reporting. Probably it smacks of the environment that we have where ministers or country leaders are supposed to declare their assets, but as to whatever happens to it, that's another level, right?
Right.
And this self-reporting requires that a certain minimum continuous professional education is undertaken in member countries. And also, if you have issues of the country or the resident country member professionals being engaged in any unethical issues or matters, if that person breaches the ethical requirements, for that to also be reported, just because assuming the person has certain cross-border relationships, so that can also be looked at within the sub-region.
Right.
So that is the way it is.
It works. Okay. Now, are there some penalties for tax professionals or institutions that engage in unethical practices?
Well, I think various member countries do have that.
Have their, okay.
Right? Because every professional institute has ethical requirements,
Right.
and there are various punitive measures that goes with it. But Wauti actually doesn't regulate the individual in various member countries directly. Wauti just seeks to get member countries to ensure that they keep to the highest
standards. Oh, okay. All right. So, but you don't engage very.
No, Wauti cannot decide if person a practitioner A is reported as engaging in something unethical. Wauti doesn't have the mandate to come to Ghana or Lagos and then sanction the person because he's not a member of Wauti.
Wauti, okay. So essentially, is it because it is voluntary to join Wauti? Because if it was something that is very statutory, then it means that you can have that oversight over those organizations, isn't it?
Oversight over those organizations, yeah. But I think once you become a member of an institute, you obviously will have to comply with the requirements of the institute.
Right.
So certainly, if you are not complying with the requirements, there are also sanctions. But what I'm saying is that those sanctions are limited to members of Wauti, which are the member institutes. For instance, if there's any sanction going to be imposed in Ghana, it will be imposed on CITG.
Okay.
Not the individual members of CITG.
Right.
For instance, CITG is a member of Wauti, you're supposed to pay your subscription. If CITG is not in good standing and there are any actions to be taken by Wauti, that is what Wauti will do.
Right.
But Wauti does not look at members of CITG who are not in good standing. Okay. That is for CITG to do.
Right. I get it. Okay. I get that. Now, what role does, I'm sure Wauti does some trainings for tax professionals. Does it do? And what role does it play in doing that, in training tax professionals?
Well, a good example is the conference Wauti is organizing. There's a main theme, and
we'll get into that conversation very soon.
Sub-team. So it's a form of training.
Okay.
And as I said, in order for us to get to the level of harmonization, we also do have technical sessions for the francophones to upskill them and those things. So that's okay. Wauti does.
All right.
The trainings could be physical, or they could be online or virtual or whatever, depending on.
Okay. Okay. So we'll talk a bit about the conference. I know the conference is the main meat for the conversation, but just that we can't just go straight into that. So I want us to have conversations about tax collection in the West African region. And maybe I have a particular question I want to ask, and you are free to answer or not. You have the right of reply. So, but I'll come to that very soon. Now, how can West African governments, I want you to add your voice to this, but how can West African governments ensure tax compliance, or increase tax compliance, especially in the informal sector? And I ask this because here in Ghana, people have raised concerns that our informal sector has a chunk of people who are not paying taxes, not because of a fault of theirs, but because of the systems that are not in place. So I would want Mrs. Appiah to speak to Ghana, and then Mr. President, you speak to West Africa. So which of you will go first?
In terms of the informal sector,
yes,
I'm looking at there should be enough tax education for the informal sector.
Okay.
For them to understand the reason why they need to pay tax. Most of them are not aware. Why should I pay tax? Okay. My small money. But when we educate them, they'll be able to appreciate. And we have to inculcate the habit of paying tax in the children whilst they are in the basic school. So by the time they grow up, they will understand the reason for paying tax. So wherever you are, whether at the informal sector or the formal sector, when taxation comes up, it's easily understandable.
But how do you do that into the children?
So we need to introduce taxation in their subject matters at school.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's social studies. That will let them know from the basics. So by the time they get to university, they are aware of their rights, their responsibilities, and why they need to pay tax.
To pay taxes.
Then we need to modify our tax laws for the informal to really appreciate. Because if the tax laws are complex, it's difficult for them to understand. Even we, the educated, sometimes it's difficult for you to appreciate the laws. But when we modify it, when we break it to their level, it makes it easier for them to appreciate why they need to pay tax.
So you don't think it's a matter of the systems or the structures that are in place? Because people have argued that it is actually because we don't really have some good structures in place as to how somebody in the informal sector, maybe a mason or maybe a carpenter, will go and there's nothing tracking them to be able to help them go pay their taxes. And so because of that, they don't pay. Not necessarily because they don't know about it or they don't know that there's a need for it.
You know, me and you, we know that our taxes will be deducted from our salary before even we receive it.
Exactly.
But these people, they will just give you the bill. So as individuals or as taxpayers ourselves, it is our responsibility to charge VAT on the informals, the masons, the carpenters. They have formed associations, but most of them are out of the associations, and these are the people that we engage them to do our work because they are cheaper. But if everybody is made an agent, that this person is working for you, so at the end of the day, if you are supposed to pay him 1,000, you withhold something, and it will be a credit to the person. Anytime he files his returns, it's a credit that will reduce his tax liability.
I see. So, but how feasible would that be? Because if imagine somebody comes to work for me and then the person is done and maybe they give me a bill and I tell them that I'm taking out a tax of say 15% or 10%, how would the person react to it? So somebody who doesn't understand will fight you. So
before you engage the person, I think the organizations, the associations they belong to, they need to register the masons, the carpenters. They have an association. So based on that, they are aware. So before you even employ the person or engage the person to work for you, you need to find out if he belongs to that association. So that one, it makes it easier.
Right.
But
if it's somebody who just knows how to do it and they are just plying the trade and then you go and
that makes it difficult. So we all have to help ourselves by educating them on the need for paying. That's why I said at the basic level, if they had gone through this training, before even they get to that level, they know that is their civil responsibility or their civil rights.
Right. But who's supposed to do the education? Is it GRA, NCC?
GRA, sometimes we call the associations. Like recently, the suites, we call the Kaneshi Item Leaders Association. We call them for a meeting over lunch. Then we educated them. Most of them were saying they didn't know about it. So we educated the leaders for them to educate their members on the reason why they need to pay tax, the way they need to go about it. And I think it's working. So it's gradual, it's a process. We'll get there.
Right, we'll get there. But final question to you. I mean, on this particular subject matter, do you think Ghana is where it is because we are unable to to, as it were, raise revenue from our tax systems in Ghana?
The question again, to raise revenue.
Yes, to generate revenue from the taxes. Do you get the question? No, I'm asking that, do you think Ghana is where it is today because we are unable to generate enough revenue from taxes?
No, I don't agree with you, because we are able to raise revenue.
Are we raising enough?
Enough.
Yeah.
That's why I said we need more education. We need more education on these issues, because with the formal sector and with the systems put in place by GRA, we are raising enough revenue.
Okay.
But we need to target the informal, because the informal sector are a lot. They are a lot. So if we are able to educate them small, it will build a mighty ocean.
Right. Okay. And that will help us get a lot more money to be able to run the country.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. I like those thoughts. Let me come to Mr. Kwatia. Now, I want to know, how can West African countries or West African governments increase tax compliance, especially in the informal sector?
I think, like she alluded to,
right.
Education. I would say education. But most importantly, I will also refer to the fact that it's been proven that digitization has also improved revenue.
Right.
Base, and also our ability to mine data analytics. I think it's also about high time that we look at the tax professional of the future, in the sense that who you pick today as a tax professional should not necessarily be the person who knows the tax laws, because the laws will keep on changing, and anybody can refer to the laws at any point in time. But you need somebody who can interpret data, somebody who can make cogent and proper analysis of information that is fed back from the system to be able to move forward. But I think the challenge we have with various governments is to look at the short-term approach instead of having a long-term view of the whole system in terms of formal, informal. I think that we should be able to improve on compliance and be able to also monitor, have a monitoring system. We shouldn't have a situation where, excuse me to say, tax revenue so mobilized is placed at the whims of politicians and they decide to do whatever it is. I think to engender compliance, to get people to pay tax, they should see what their taxes are. I think it's about high time we enact laws to restrict leadership of the sub-region in how much they spend in terms of tax revenue. We should have a certain breakdown that maybe 80% goes into development in terms of internally generated funds by way of taxes, and maybe 20% goes into your manifesto, blah, blah, blah. We cannot have a system where somebody decides that because I'm the president, I'm going to do X or Y. We've seen it before, that certain projects are undertaken to the detriment of other things that we could have probably used taxpayer funds to do and achieve better results, being whittled away in certain things. But I think once we get to that level where people can see what their taxes are used for, be it informal or the formal system, you're going to get compliance. In any case, I look at the two separately. The formal system is already in the tax net. And what do you need? Once again, technology. What you need is to be able to adequately capture the true data. There should be the system should engender transparency. The system should engender good reporting systems, such that tax administrators will be able to fully interpret information they have and then delve deeper to get what is due them. And taxpayers should also get to that level where they are transparent enough to themselves to know that this is what I'm supposed to pay. And therefore, if the revenue should come up with something else, I'm going to challenge it because I've been honest and transparent enough. I think that is where, for me, going forward, the formal sector should be. The informal sector, like she alluded to, they say, the scripture says, train the child the way he should grow, and when he grows, he will not depart from it. If we teach our children right from even KG systems or play, as they are playing, they need to exchange, they need to share, it's all part of giving.
Right.
If we inculcate sharing and giving in our kids, and it progresses to maybe level 1 or blah, 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 training, blah, 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 that is fine. But most importantly, I think as part of the training she raised, we should even, at all professional levels, introduce taxation. I've heard doctors who claim they know nothing about tax. Meanwhile, they're operating their private clinics. And then it tells you that the employee I pay taxes. So why should I pay tax on the hospital revenue itself or company tax? They don't just, lawyers even deny those who are supposed to know the law. They deny. I have worked with a lawyer before, and he told me that their association, the bar association, say that they are exempt from VAT. And I laughed. And I said, this guy doesn't know he's talking to a tax man, right? So we have a situation where, because professional bodies do not have any component of tax, even though they know that when their people qualify, they are going to go into practice, they are going to generate revenue. They don't talk about that. I think it should be legally binding for all professional bodies to introduce at least a basic level of taxation. Not for examination purposes, but you need to pass before your certificate is given to you. It may be non-scoring, but just get a basic knowledge in tax. And that, I think, will very much help in the informal sector.
If it wasn't a conference, I would have stood up and be clapping for you. But thank you so much. I like those thoughts that you shared. That's a lot of information there that I believe that if we are able to put in place, will transform our taxation system in the West African region and even beyond. Thank you for that. Well, if you just tuned in, we're 31 minutes past 9, and I'm speaking to Mr. George Kwetia. I've been prompted. President of Wauti and the Chartered Institute of Taxation, Ghana, CITG, and Mrs. Ernestina Apia, who is the chairperson of the local organizing committee of Wauti 2025 and the vice president of CITG. And we are talking about how taxation harmonization can enhance revenue mobilization, improve compliance, and create a fair economic system across West Africa. And Wauti, the West African Union of Taxation Institute, is leading this particular effort in these various sectors. Now, we'll go further in our conversation. I wanted to stay a bit on the issues in Africa because there are a lot of them. But one that I can't evade is about taxing digital transactions, one that we all cannot avoid. With the rise of e-commerce, should VAT be applied, in your opinion, to digital transactions? Who should I go to?
It's a question local or Africa or global?
I think it cuts across, but if you,
okay.
yeah.
All right, let me maybe start from the international perspective and the stuff. digital transactions, I think for me, what is very common in the literature we go through, more often than not, focusing on direct tax, which is corporate tax, in terms of nexus, who owns what, the right to tax, what should be the basis, is it your fiscal presence in a particular economic environment, or the existence of consumers in a particular environment who use your services, or whatever the basis. You see that most of the literature tends to focus on that, but I just want to talk about what probably is not really looked at closely in terms of, for instance, as you see in the sub-themes, the issue of VAT. The challenge. For instance, in my youthful days, when you were not probably, maybe your father wasn't dating your mother. Sorry, ignore that. If you want to listen to music, or if you want to sell, you either need a CD or cassette. Or whatever.
So I was born.
It's a physical something.
I was born at the time.
So yeah, where we used to put a pencil or so, and then you roll it. Okay, that's fine. It's good to know. That physical gadget or equipment or whatever, straight away captures you for VAT, because you need to pay import VAT on the cassettes or CDs or whatever. Now, I want to watch a film. I don't need a CD or whatever. I may go to Netflix. When I'm registering for Netflix to pay my subscription, Netflix doesn't know the laws of Ghana, right? So the system doesn't even give me, even if I wanted to pay VAT on my Netflix subscription, Netflix hasn't designed the system of payment to capture. Either paying VAT inclusive of what I'm sending out to them, or even self-imposing VAT on my own, on the system, right? So government loses revenue because I sit in the closet of my room, the convenience of my room, and I register. And with the press of a remote control Netflix, I watch my phone.
Watch
GRA has no clue how to monitor me, and then say, oh, George, you owe VAT on your Netflix subscription. If I even, as a good citizen, my social responsibility, I walk to GRA right now, that, oh, I have a subscription on Netflix. I want to pay, I know it's VAT taxable. I want to pay VAT on it. I don't think the system has any facility to help. So, to me, the challenge on digital transactions, the world, or Ghana, let me put it there, Ghana, and for that matter, Africa, West Africa, should come to the realization that we've moved away from the tax regimes where taxation was jurisdictional, territorial. That I'm in Ghana, you come in to trade, I tax you because you are physically here. Those were the times when people have to have a physical presence and then you tax it, because that was the trend, or that was the nature of things anyway. Now things have moved way beyond that. And our laws are still looking at the brick and mortar kind of trade. Incidentally, the challenge is, how do you move away from your existing laws to be able to capture what the future is? I used to tell my my son that formerly it was taxation was jurisdictional, territorial. Then suddenly we have international tax. It's gone global. Very soon, I guess it will be maybe celestial or something because people are planning going to Mars to live there.
Yeah.
People are planning. Are we thinking of how we can also tax? I guess it's, so but we will get there.
Yeah, eventually.
But we're not thinking of that now. But some people want to go and live there. Is that, would that be deemed to be a tax avoidance? Or would I don't know. But now, probably we're now going to move from global to something else. Okay. So I think with this in mind, our policymakers, drafters of the law, our leadership should start thinking, not even to meet the current situation we have.
Okay.
We also have the brains. We should be thinking beyond. So when we are enacting our laws to address digital economy now, digital transaction now, I think we will not do ourselves any good service if we look at the situation now. Because what the global world, the international community is passing on to us is what it is now. And they have crafted and drafted various conventions and treaties or proposals to their interest. We do not even have a voice at the table. And, you know, you'll be sitting at a table and you don't know whether you are going to take a menu or you yourself, you are the menu. You are the one going to be eating. And I think we should actually be at the table to rather not to be eating.
Okay. But also eat.
Correct. And I think we should be more futuristic than being present. Because I look at all the literature and all that stuff, it's like, okay, this is what is being proposed. It's like we just pick and choose or marry A plus B, then we will call it our own destiny. Please, I think we should be thinking forward. So that when we are forward looking, I think for me, that's the way I look at digital economy and taxation of digital businesses.
Right. I wish you could go more into that, but because of time. Oh, you want to add something?
Add something. With the taxation of the digital economy, GRA has really started. We have onboarded some of the companies. And we've started taxing them. We have a unit called e-commerce. They have had meetings and agreements, signed agreements. So now we tax them. So we have that system in place. Maybe we need to advance. We are onboarding them slowly. So it's something that we have really started.
But how do we ensure that it doesn't discourage online business growth? But that's a conversation for another day. I wish we could go into that. Because of time, we'll have to move on. But I see something called a tax women's agenda. Maybe if we can touch on that briefly. What is it and how does it empower female tax professionals? Then we can go into, we have very limited time. I told you the time will be.
We have a society called SWIT. That's Society of Women in Taxation. So as part of the conference, we have Society of Women in Taxation West Africa. So that's the female wing of the Tax Institutes. They are coming together to deliberate on issues. They have their team for the conference as part, because the women professionals in the various institutes, they have come together as the SWIT. Let's make it SWIT. Yes, that's how we call our SWIT. And they help with the educating they are mainly working with the informal sector. Educating them on their rights and responsibilities, how to keep proper records, and anything that they need to know concerning their tax system. Yes.
Right.
So that is mainly about them.
Tax
and the West
agenda.
Africa one was formed just 2 years ago
Okay.
as a female wing of the Tax Institute.
Okay. All right. All right. Great. So
and
I think
she's
that
the
should be
vice president of SWIT.
No.
of SWIT
I'm the secretary.
secretary.
So
Oh,
really,
okay.
okay.
All right. All right. So you wear a lot of hats because chairperson of committee and a host of other things. Now let's talk about the conference. What is the theme? So it's Wauti 2025 conference.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. What is the theme for the conference and what inspired that?
The theme is domestic revenue mobilization in the wake of dwindling aid flows and increasing debts.
Can you take that again?
Domestic revenue mobilization in the wake of dwindling aid flows and increasing debts. Strategies for developing economies.
Wow, such a powerful theme. Because we see a lot of, these days, USAID is out, a lot of aids are being taken out. And that's a very, very powerful theme. And what are the expected outcomes for the conference?
The expected outcomes is we are getting commissioner generals from the various West African countries to have a dialogue, come together, have a dialogue among themselves. We are putting professionals and experts together under one roof to discuss tax issues to help with their various economy.
Okay.
So basically that is. Well, yes. And why did we choose the theme? We chose the theme because we want the domestic resource mobilization challenges facing countries in West Africa for them to align and discuss so that we'll all be at par and help in raising revenue. Now that they are cutting our aids, we need to be on our own and see how best we'll be able to raise revenue to build our individual countries.
So essentially, who are the targets for this conference? Is it just tax professionals? Anybody in the space?
Anybody, but mainly tax professionals.
Okay.
Tax professional. And anyone who is interested in taxation, you want to know more about what your revenue can do.
Okay.
You are invited.
But Mr. Kwetia said everybody should be interested in tax. So we can't say those interested. It should be everybody.
So everybody is invited.
Okay.
Yes.
When is it happening and where?
It's happening at Holiday Inn.
Okay.
Here in Accra. This year is Ghana that is hosting it.
Wow.
We move from country to country. And this year is Ghana's turn.
Wow.
So Ghana is hosting it at Holidays Inn.
Okay.
From the women are starting today, this evening, with the hospitality night.
Okay.
Then tomorrow, their conference starts. Then Wednesday, Wauti conference starts.
Okay.
At 9 a.m. with the opening ceremony. Then the technical sessions follows. Till Thursday.
Right. So it's running from now till Thursday.
From now to Thursday.
What time to what time?
We start at 9 to 4, but I think the last day we'll close at 5. 4:35.
Right. And is it free?
No, it's not free. It goes with a little l'argent.
Okay, so how much are we looking at?
For physical participation, you pay $300 or CD equivalent. Wow. Then if you want to join virtual, it's $100.
Okay.
Or its equivalent.
So virtual is 100, physical is 300. I see. What workshops or sessions and training opportunities will be available at the conference?
We have technical sessions, 4 technical sessions, which has various topics to be discussed by seasoned experts.
Can you run us to them if you have?
Well, actually, if you look at the brochure, as you said,
Right.
there are 4 areas. One is the issue you talked about. We're going to look at digital economy and taxation of digital economy. We're going to look at illicit funds. We're going to look at
reshaping international tax standards under the UN Framework Convention.
Right.
Then leveraging tax analysis for revenue generation and compliance monitoring. So we have experts from Ghana and outside Ghana to lead in the panel discussions.
Okay. Who are some of the people who are leading the conversation?
For the digitalization, we have the various commissioner generals. We have Gambia coming.
Okay.
We have the first presenter being the acting commissioner general of Ghana Revenue Authority. We have some people from South Africa, Nigeria.
And some part of...
Yes, we have tax experts from PwC, KPMG,
and some other ones.
and some others.
Right. Okay. So so we already talked about the what they are supposed to pay to get in there. So if it's $300, you said $300 for people who are joining physically.
No, $100 for virtual
and $300
for
physical. Yeah. So what goes into that? Are you going to provide some food? Are you going to provide some lunch? I don't know.
Yes, please.
Everything.
Everything.
Okay. Where everything?
Everything.
Everything includes breakfast,
Okay.
coffee breaks, lunch.
Okay.
In absence of course, there's no dinner because of the timing we close. And then we'll have
Conference package.
Yes, and then
with their
awards
souvenirs.
and souvenirs and those stuff.
All right.
T-shirts. You have a bag. You have whatever you need to fully participate in terms of what you use in writing and blah blah blah.
All right. So is there a ticket they have to buy, or they come there with their money and they get in?
You register online.
Okay. So can you give us a?
But if you're unable to do so, you can come physically and make a payment.
Or is there contact to also call?
Yes, you can contact 0244 756 899.
02. Please take it out again.
0244 756 899.
Okay, if
for
you want to.
Any assistance that you require.
Okay, so the Wauti Conference 2025, it's happening from today till Thursday, from exactly 9 o'clock to 4 p.m. And you should be there. Don't miss the conference for anything. I wish we could get Z representation there to come cover this. Maybe if you can find us that opportunity, we'll be very glad, so that we can.
It's available.
It's available. Great, thank you. All right, so if you want to get in touch with them, 0244 756 899, 0244 756 899. It's 300 CDs if you want to be there, physically, and $300, yes, or the equivalent of that. $300 physical, and then $100 online if you want to join virtually. Yeah, it's a very, very good conversation that is going to be had there. A very good conversation, and I think that we should all attend. You want to say something?
The women, the virtual is $80.
Oh, so it's subsidized for women?
Yes.
Why is it subsidized for women?
No, just for the suites.
Oh, okay, just for the 2 days conference.
Yes, today and tomorrow. Today's own starts at 5. It's a hospitality night. We welcome the West African people who are in. But the conference itself starts tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, great.
And the participation is $150.
No, now I'm confused. The participation is $150.
Virtual. Physical.
Physical.
Then virtual is $80 for the women.
For the women. Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, maybe let me
Give some
the truth.
clarity.
Okay.
Yeah, some clarity.
There are 2 conferences running concurrently.
Okay.
Wauti they are all Wauti conferences, okay? But then we devote some days for SWIT, which is Society of Women in Taxation, which is the female professional wing of Wauti.
Okay.
They are organizing their conference for the women. Men can attend, husbands, brothers can attend, whatever. But the focus is that it's being run by the female wing. And that starts this evening with the hospitality night. And then tomorrow, they continue with their main conference.
Oh.
And that is where she's saying is, if you want to participate in that, if you come fiscal, that's $150 equivalent in cedis.
Right.
If you want to do virtual, the SWIT conference is $80 equivalent.
Right.
Close that chapter.
Okay.
After tomorrow, then comes Wauti's main conference. That is men and women.
Okay.
Okay. And that is the original fee, the initial fee she raised of 100 for virtual and 300 for physical presence.
Oh, okay. All right.
So there are 2 separate conferences, but running concurrently. So if you want to do the SWIT plus the Wauti to have the full benefit, if it's virtual, then it's 80 plus 100, which is 180 for virtual, to cover the SWIT, the female conference.
I thought you said 150.
Sorry?
I thought you
it's
said 150.
80 plus 100.
100, okay.
Plus 100, which is 180.
180 for the female.
If you want to do both.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
If you want to do both with physical presence, then you have the SWIT one
150
being 150 plus the 300, which is $450 equivalent
right,
for both.
Yeah.
Some people may do the female one and then fly out.
Okay.
Others may wait and do the Wauti, the main conference for whatever we've discussed here.
Okay.
Or you can do both.
Okay. All right. I think it's clear. But if you need any clarity, you can still call them on 0244 756 899. Right. I think we've had a great time. Are there any final thoughts you may want to put across? Let me start from Mrs. Apia.
The conference will be interesting and educative. So I encourage as many people to participate, register and participate.
All right, let me come to Mr. Kwetia.
I would say that taxation is in our own interest, and that we all want to see our country, our sub-region develop. And the only way we can really get it done with pride is to finance the development ourselves, and that should come from internally we paying our taxes as individuals, as corporate bodies, as regional groupings, or whatever the situation is, so that we can really lift the West African sub-region from the doldrums of poverty. And I'm sorry, even as a country, we said our development wasn't going to be tied with aid. Incidentally, we should fight and make sure that we do not rely on aid any longer, just because America has taken the bold step in trying to demonstrate to the world that we need to be independent, and we need not be told before we act. So I think it is for us to act now, pay our due share, and get our country leadership also to channel the resources into areas of development that will engender growth.
Wow, thank you very much. You want to say something?
Yes, please. I want to add the email address.
Okay, all right, sure.
It's info@wauti.org. info@wauti.org.
Okay, all right. So thank you very much. I want to say a very special thank you to the two of you, Mr. George Kwetia, yes, and Mrs. Ernestina Apia. I'm so grateful that you came.
Thank you.
Thank
too.
you too.
All right,
Thank you for having us.
Great. Please enjoy your.
And thanks to your audience for taking time off to listen
Right.
to us.
Right. Thank you very much. Well, that's how we wrap up today's conversation